Okay, so welcome everybody to our virtual event tonight. Tonight we are talking with Joy McCullough, who is joining us here. I'm so excited. Joy lived in a castle in Scotland as a young child. Now she writes books and plays from her home in the Seattle area, where she lives with her husband and two children. She is the author of the middle grade novels Across the Pond, which is her latest one and right here on nice display, which I love because it's wonderful, and a field guide to getting lost. She is also the author of the picture book Champ and Major First Dogs, which is about the Biden's dogs. That's right. And her debut novel, Blood, Water, Paint, was actually longlisted for the National Book Award and was a William C. Morris Debut Award finalist. You can visit her at her website at joymccullough.com. So welcome, Joy. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight to talk about your awesome book.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about this. And so let's just jump right in, and we'll just kick things off by talking about the ins and outs of Across the Pond. And, what is it about? What was the initial spark that set you off on writing just this awesome, great, happy book that makes me smile?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll give the sort of initial pitch of the book, which is that it is mostly a contemporary present-day story of Callie, who has grown up in San Diego, but her parents, through a sequence of events, inherit this Scottish castle, this sort of rundown Scottish castle. And Callie has been going through a really difficult friendship situation in San Diego, and so she's actually happy to move and excited to live in a castle. They get there, and their hope is to turn it into like a tourist destination. So they're doing all these renovations, and Callie is trying to adjust to life in a brand new country. And because of all the friendship issues she had back home, she's pretty hesitant to connect with other kids her age. But she discovers her parents require her to come up with some kind of socializing activity because she wants to be homeschooled. But they're saying, yeah, but you gotta connect with other people. And there's a bird watching group for kids that she sees is meeting at the library, and she decides to check that out. And that sets her off on a bird watching path. So the initial spark for the book was actually, there's a young woman called Maya Rose Craig, who she's 18 now. She lives in the UK, and her social media handles are Bird Girl UK. She had written a blog post when she was like 12, when she was already a really avid birder, and she was talking in this blog post about the sexism within birding in the UK. And she was just really eloquent and so interesting. And I didn't know anything about birding, but I was really interested in her. But I filed it away sort of as an idea, of something to explore, but that in itself wasn't a book. And then, I started to think about writing something based on the fact that my family had lived, in a castle in Scotland, when I was very small. And so the two ideas sort of came together and became one.
Oh, yay! And that is so cool. I did not know about sexism in birding, but I suppose it would probably make sense. Yeah. But all right. So then you kind of answered this already, but I would like to know just in like terms. So as booksellers, like we're always trying to sell the best way to sell the books that we love. And I love Across the Pond. I pitch it to people it's so lovely. It's this lovely coming of age story about family, friendship, birding with a little history thrown in. How would you sell your books to excited readers?
So, I think American Girl moves into a Scottish castle usually does it. Like, that's usually what people are so excited about. So it's mostly that. But then there'll also be the readers who really can connect with the toxic friendship stuff, that there's so much of that, when you're middle grade age. I'm a mom, both my kids have dealt with friendship stuff. I feel like even if you can't relate to the birding, or, you're not interested in Scotland, she's on a journey of sort of healing from this difficult friendship thing and learning how to connect again. And so I think that is an important piece of it too, that people connect with.
Yeah, because that, and I'm going to skip around with the questions because actually you went into Callie herself, and I actually had that too, about like, since she's like the very center of the story, obviously, and how she comes into her own, and she's in Scotland. And although obviously not every kid has been to Scotland, I have not been to Scotland yet, and I'm very upset about that. But but a lot of what she goes through, like the toxic friendships, is really relatable to pretty much anybody. But like, and even like the, going through the toxic friendships, moving is like thing that kids go through. Even, and I'm sure when you wrote this, you weren't thinking that the homeschooling aspect was going to become such a big relatable thing, but it is now.
Yeah.
So like just how did you kind of incorporate like this into her character so like kids from anywhere could feel like, wow, I really understand this. I understand this girl. Like, even if the first time they've heard the phrase birding is right now.
Right. Yeah. So I think that when you're writing characters, it's really about the emotions. Readers are going to connect to the emotions a character is having. So whether the character is scared or excited or angry or jealous or whatever, you don't have to understand what it is to be, on a pirate ship or, on a space station, but you can understand, you can connect to and relate to those emotions. And so I'm always thinking, no matter where a book is set, or because in my YAs, I write historical from like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And with those, I think they can still be relatable because of the emotions. Readers can plug into that and understand that, oh gosh, in that situation, I would feel that way too. Or maybe they wouldn't feel that way, but they're interested in seeing how Callie plays it out, So I'm not like trying to make every reader connect to her. What I'm trying to do is craft an emotional journey for her that's real, and readers will connect with it at whatever point along the way that they connect with those emotions. And also just Callie's, there's a lot of her that's like me, and like I was at that age. My family was I grew up in San Diego as well, and we had the opportunity, we were possibly going to move when I was in middle school, and oh my gosh, I wanted it so bad. I hadn't had that specific, like, one big friendship blow up, but it's just middle school is so rough. And the idea of a chance to move several states away and have a completely fresh start, I wanted it so bad. And it didn't end up happening. but I think a lot of people can relate to that chance for a fresh start,
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So that actually does remind me of my own middle school experience. I didn't move, but in like the span of 1 year, I had this really close group of friends. They all moved away.
Oh gosh.
I was by myself and it is really horrible. So you could actually relate to just that emotional turmoil of maybe I didn't move, but all my friends did, and now I'm alone. And it's like, so I was like, I totally get the whole thing. I'm like, oh man, in a weird way, I would have almost liked to move at that point,
right,
somewhere else, like maybe,
Yeah, because there'd feel like more possibility in that, if you're moving somewhere, rather than being left behind.
Rather than like, I'm still here and everyone else left, and now I don't know what it is. And it's another, like, especially, and that goes into her dealing with that friendship fallout. And, I feel like a lot of people, at least, like, haven't gone through it, you can't really understand. At that age, it's a big deal. Like, it is a really
it's everything. Yeah.
It's really hard to deal with that, and it's very upsetting. And wouldn't we all like to run away to a Scottish castle?
I sure would.
And be like, I'm gone. It's like, yes, Scottish castle. And I do like how you brought up the whole, it's like, I feel like this about the possibilities, because I feel like the whole book really made me feel like just these possibilities open up everywhere. And I think that was just a really like great message to like have throughout the book, being like, there can be new things. So that was really, really nice. Very, very well done. I was very excited about it. But
Thank you.
yes. And I know, and so now just with Scotland though, you really do bring it to life on the pages. Like you really do. And, I know you only grew up there for a little while. I don't know if you've been back ever, but, but like, I have never been to Scotland, which is something that it has been on my list for so long. But you described it so well that you kind of created this transportative feeling. Like even people who haven't been there, how did you do that? Did you go back to Scotland? Did you just research? Like what exactly? How did you fashion that on the page?
I'm so glad that it was clear for you. So we lived there when I was a small child, but I was very, very young when we left. I really didn't have memories. I had a lot of family stories and photographs and those sort of things that feel like they're memories because people have told you them so many times, But I didn't have them as my own memories. And when I hadn't been back to Scotland, when I had the idea to write this, and I was doing research from Seattle where I live, and I mean, the internet is so wonderful for authors. I mean, you can Google Street View, certain things and just feel like you're right there, but nothing beats actually going there. And so I actually had written a full draft, but we waited when I knew that the book had sold and was going to be published. Then I felt like, okay, I can take some of this money and go. And so I did go, which was absolutely amazing. And I went and I stayed in this incredible little hobbit hole Airbnb rental outside Edinburgh. It was so cool. And I got to go to visit the castle that I lived in as a small child, which has been massively renovated into this wedding event destination place. But it was really, really cool to get to. So I very much, the way I describe the castle, it's based on that castle, which is called Dundas Castle. You can look at it online. But yeah, so I got to go, and I'd already written the full draft, and I had been working with my editor on the plot and character stuff. But being there, then I did another revision that was just based on the place, and trying to incorporate all the things that I got to see when I was there. And I took so many pictures and so many notes, and I was there by myself. So, I'm a mom, I'm a lot of people always needing me at home, but I was by myself, so I could go out and I was explore Edinburgh or explore the castle. And then I'd get home and I'd be able to just write it all down. I had time to sort of let it sink in and then hopefully get it out onto the page. But I will say that you don't have to be able to go someplace to write authentically, because that's just not realistic for most people in most situations. And, certainly for the last year and a half, I definitely haven't been able to go anywhere to research something. And my debut novel is set in Italy and it did very well, but I've never been to Italy. So, the internet is absolutely incredible for writers. It is possible, but nothing beats getting to actually go be in a place.
Yes. So basically, if you can go, even if you probably go anyway.
I mean, if you have the opportunity, of course, but if that's not within your reach, that doesn't mean you can only write about, the world,
like all that. Yeah. I do like what you bring up about this. You can use Google Street View, and it's right. Oh, look at that.
You really can. And I did a bunch of that in writing the first draft, trying to see what it would be like because I didn't know.
Oh my gosh. I know. That's so cool. Oh, I do love all that. That is very awesome. So I know you kind of touched on this, and I'm going back to Callie again because I love her and she's wonderful. And I know you kind of touched on it already, but how much of Callie's story actually did reflect your own? Did any of it? Was there something there or not?
Well, so it wasn't specific, specific family or friend dynamics. Family I'll get to, but it wasn't specific friend dynamics. It was more just the general feel of it. And I grew up in San Diego, where Cali is, and there's a lot for Cali that was my experience of feeling like appearance mattered so much. And that's a thing that, I've lived in a few different places now, and really specific to Southern California. I felt it more. I still feel it more when I go home to visit my parents, that I go home to visit my parents, and my mom and all her friends, not a single one of them has a gray hair. And here I am, because in Southern California, it's like just like extremely image conscious. So that was something I really, really struggled with when I was Callie's age. And so it's something that she struggles with. But also, like I mentioned, I'm a mom, and I have well, my daughter is 15 and my son is 11 now. But I was working on the book a little bit, a few years back now. And Callie's got a little brother, Jax, who's very athletic and very social. And that's very much like my son. And my daughter has a lot more in common with Callie. So I didn't base the characters on them, but the family dynamics, are very much there, sort of from not so much my childhood, but my own family now.
Did you find it easier to, like, because sometimes it's hard for like adult writers to get into the mind space of a child, because it's really Callie who's talking and telling you, and she's, a young girl, and she's, and like, as much as we remember from when we were her age, obviously we're not her age anymore.
Right.
Was it helpful for you to have, like, with kids of your own, to, like, get into the headspace of, like, what a, like, 11, 12-year-old girl would be doing?
I think maybe it helps to an extent. Certainly writing contemporary middle grade, it helps to know, like, just contemporary slang and stuff. Would kids actually say this or not say this? That's probably what it helps with most, is the dialogue. But like I was talking about, sort of writing from the emotional truth of it, that's the same thing for me. So, I write picture book through YA, and whether my character is a dog, or an 11-year-old or a 17-year-old in the 1600s, I'm writing about where they are emotionally, and so that's what gets me in the mindset. So I'm thinking about the hurt of going through that friendship ordeal, and that's the mindset I'm in, more than, oh, she's 12, so
Yes.
So it's more about thinking of it that way. Yeah, but I do think, I'm sure it does help that I have kids at the right age, that I'm, and also because that means I read so much middle grade aloud. I read it for myself, but we read aloud every night, so I get to read a ton of middle grade aloud with them and see how they react to stuff too, which probably helps me.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
and I really do like how you're saying that you come at it from this emotional truth and not just thinking, oh, she's 12. Because I feel like you come at it from the emotional truth part, then you kind of run the less risk of talking down to the kids that are reading it. Because, that's a way to like, I think that's just great. I like that you said it that way and said it at all, because I find, like, so many people, like, they think, like, they need to have, like, kids that age need to have, like, talked down to, right? They don't. They understand. They get it.
And if you're talking down to them, they get that too.
Oh, like, yeah,
they get it, and they don't like it. It's going to make them shut the book faster than anything else.
So, yeah, I think definitely coming at it from this place of just this emotional connection, instead of worrying about, like, the age. The age part will come, like,
right.
But if you speak from, like, the truth and the heart of it, and then, there it is. And then then it's like, oh, this is great. And it is. It's so great. I'm so happy about it. It makes me smile. And I love books that make me smile. I always... And all right, but now I really want to talk about the birding, because I loved the birding. It was like totally as soon as I saw there's birding involved, I was like, oh yeah, no, I have to read this. This is mine now, and everyone can just back off. So and I would like to say, no, I am not a birder. I wish to have the stamina of a birder. But yeah, I'm one of those, I would love to find it, but I love the birds. And if they could just, come to me, that would be better. Oh my gosh. But for you, for writing about the birding, so it's popular. It's been popular in the UK for a while. It's getting more popular in the US. But I know you sort of talked about it. You saw that article by that 12-year-old about it. But in my brain, and maybe this is just me thinking, I wouldn't think birding would be the first thing you'd think of for a middle grade book.
Right.
But it works. I mean, it's fantastic. So what made that decision to be okay, because it's one thing to say, wow, this 12-year-old girl wrote this really amazing blog post, and another, hey, you know what I think middle grade audience really like? This birding book. I mean, I love it, but I'm probably not in that age range, but I read it anyway. So how did you come to the decision to make this, have that birding be the thing that connects her to other people?
Well, I think, first of all, that kids have all sorts of really specific interests, right? Get really obsessed with things. I mean, so can adults. And so I think that kids, even if they don't care about birds, I think they can connect with the passion and excitement of falling into a new interest. So I think there's that. And I think because I read Maya Rose Craig's article when she was a middle grade character, basically, I sort of had that in mind. And birding is a thing in the UK, and clubs for youth birding are a thing. It's not just an adult, because here I think we hear birding and we tend to think it's little old ladies, with their safari vests and
older gentlemen or something
right, exactly. And I don't think that there's quite as much of a youth birding movement here in the US
yet. Maybe you'll start.
Right. But yeah, and it was so much fun. So I don't know quite how I was this is going to be the thing. It wasn't thinking, I think this is going to make kids want to go birding. It was more just that I thought it was a really interesting story for her to find this thing she was excited about and have that sort of open this new place up for her. But it was fun for me because I was not at all, I didn't know anything about birding. It was the feminism that had brought me to Maya Rose Craig's article, right? And my first middle grade, A Field Guide to Getting Lost, is actually completely about two kids who don't like to go outside. And that's me. I don't like to go outside. I am very much indoors. And you said you wish the birds would come to you. They can. So I almost never, I don't hike. I don't do any of the outdoor stuff, which is ridiculous because I live in the Pacific Northwest, which is absolutely gorgeous. But I prefer to be inside, and so I have bird feeders, and so many birds come, and it's so cool to learn. And I just recently saw a bird that was new to me. I'd never seen it, and the excitement of then going online and writing in the characteristics and figuring out what bird it was. It was a northern flicker. And it's so exciting, and it's weird how exciting that is, but it is. So I've sort of developed this interest, but it doesn't mean that I'm going out for hour-long nature walks, because that's just not in me either. I like appreciating the birds from inside. Yes. And they do come to me. So
there we go, guys. That's how you get the birds to come to you.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And we were talking earlier before we started. I was well, yeah, that makes so much more sense because, they can fly. I have to walk to them.
Right.
They can just avoid all of the nasty stuff on the ground that, is going to trip me or bite me.
But for anyone who's interested, Maya Rose Craig actually has a podcast called Get Birding. That's really good. She interviews all kinds of really interesting people. So I highly recommend that. And there's an app called Chirpomatic, which I think is 99 cents. But for when you hear bird calls, you can record it and it'll tell you what bird it was, which is kind of fun.
That's so cool. Yeah. And that it goes into some of my other questions, because I was going to ask if you have like any recommendations for any kids who, maybe want to learn about birds or birding. Do you have any others? Like, what kind of like resources did you use? Because you said, you didn't really know anything about birding. So it has to have something in the book now. So
yeah, let's see. Well, I read a ton of books. And they were not necessarily books for kids. They were just books about birding. And I wish I remember the title. There was one book that really, really impacted me. It was, bird watchers have something called a life list, which is the list of all of the birds that they have seen in their lifetime. And then there are like records of who has the most birds on their life list. And there is a bookseller would probably be able to figure out what the title is, about this guy spending an entire year traveling all over the world in like this amazing race style, like plane to plane to plane to plane, trying to see this massive number of birds in this short amount of time and hit this huge bird life list number. And I read that, and it was fascinating because of the birds, but also it really showed you the passion and the drive for it, right? Because it was not like a leisurely vacation. It was like constant, and he was exhausted. And so that book, though I can't remember the title, I remember making a big impact on me. I got a lot of just like field guides. There's so much information on the internet, just like Audubon Society, kind of their website, and they'll lead you to resources in your neighborhood. I'm actually going for a walk on Saturday for the first time with my local chapter of the Feminist Bird Club, which is a thing. And they actually have chapters across the United States. And that's, there is some sexism in birding. And so these are clubs where it's more of a safe space for, all kinds of people to come. And I've never done one before. This is my first time doing that with that group. But if you just poke around a little online, there's also a lot of citizen science resources online, places where, because bird populations are declining because of all the havoc we're wreaking on the environment, right? And there's all sorts of different apps and websites and things where you can track bird sightings that helps them know, in this area, this bird has been seen and this bird has been seen. I can't remember like specific sites right now, but if you Google young birders, there are resources. It's really cool, especially for everyone who's homeschooling now. There is stuff it's that citizen science. That's, it's fun, but it also is learning.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. And actually that book you were talking about, it sounds similar to something, but I'm not sure if it's the same thing. I don't know. There's a book called The Big Year, which is like this. A big year is more specific to just North America, though, not the whole world.
Yeah.
It was a book, and then they did make it into a movie, which is sort of based on the book, which is actually how I learned about birding for the first time. I saw the movie because it's got Steve Martin, Jack Black, and Owen Wilson in it. And
wow.
Big Year, and it's these three guys who are played by those three, and basically the Big Year is this competition that happens with birders in the U.S. of North America.
Yeah. And
they go through the whole year, and whoever sees the most birds then is like they won the Big Year. And it's just their story and their journey. And you're right. The birds were very interesting, but it's like the passion that these guys have. And I'm like, my goodness, like, cause these are like you said, these are not vacations that they're taking across the country. These are like hard trips. Like they're going to like this way out there island in Alaska in the Aleutian Chain where there's no running water. There's no electricity. There's no indoor plumbing. Because that's where all of these amazing birds are. And they all go there. And I'm like, wow, that's like dedication.
But see, that sounds fascinating, but that's why you think that you have to have stamina to be a birder. But birding can also be sitting on your porch and going, look at that robin. That's so cool. There's a huge gap.
Actually, so there we go. I'm like looking at the birds. Oh, it's so much fun. Goodness. But yeah, and actually there are now, there are a lot of, I have had a lot of people come into the store. Now these are, older people, not necessarily children, but they all like are very fascinated with like they want like the Audubon birding guide or like the birds of North America, stuff like that. So now I'm kind of thinking, would this be like a nice way to like have maybe parents or grandparents and their kids or grandkids, like there's like a connection there? Because then that could be like, so like, yes, they could show them birding and being like, oh, birding is cool and it's so much fun. So yes.
Yeah. I definitely think so. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away a few years ago, but he was a huge birder. And when he died, my grandma sent us each a book from his library. And it was pretty random that she happened to send me his Sibley Guide for Birds, which is kind of like the bird Bible. And at the time, it was before this book. So at the time, I was like, well, this is kind of random. But when I was researching this book, I was able to pull it out. And it was really an extra cool connection for me to be like, this was my grandpa's. So I definitely think that it could be a connection between, older generations that bird watch and younger ones who will have the apps and stuff.
Yeah, see, the apps. Put anything in an app. That's how we get the young people interested. Here's an app. Now you can learn from your grandparents about the birds, and then you can show them, hey, look, we can do this app thing, and we can do so much more now. It'll be so much fun. So that's right, kids and parents. That's what you do. Get the birds. Birds are cool. Birds are coming back. But so actually, speaking of like joining the past and the present, the other element I really liked in Across the Pond was the whole, when Callie finds that journal, which is what initially sets her off on, hey, maybe I should try birding. So, and I did like how it's like how you like the stories interspersed with the pages from the journal, which is always nice because it actually looks like a journal page, not just, which is really cool. And it's like, I kind of felt like this girl's writing from like the 1939 or something, like, and she finds it in her house, and it's like this link to the past, and then the birds sort of connect her to that, but then the birds are also like this connection to these future possibilities. And like, I mean, I'm assuming that was your intent, but like, so, but how did you come to like think, hey, a journal from the past would be really cool? Because that's like a really cool idea. And
yeah, I love making those connections between past and present, and I do that in my books for older readers as well. I wasn't planning that when I set out to write this book. So because this was my second book with this editor, we had sold it on proposal. So you write like 50 pages and give them a synopsis of what's going to happen. So I had a plan, a synopsis that I'd given my editor. But what's really cool is that even with a plan like that, to see the things that come up while you are in the middle of it. I hope my son yelling in the background isn't too terrible. He's playing Minecraft upstairs from me, and he's very loud. Sorry about that. He was warned that I had an event. What was I talking about?
The journal part.
And journal. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. It on synopsis, and you had a plan.
Yes, got it. And I just heard my husband's footsteps to go tell him to zip it up. Yes, so I had a plan, and much of what I planned is in the book, but there are also things that happen just sort of organically in the process that can inform a book's development. And so the journal was really that. I wasn't planning it. It wasn't so I didn't say in the plan or in the sample 50 pages, oh, there's going to be this interspersed journal entries. But one thing that happened while I was working on the book was this old trunk that I had gotten from my grandfather's house when he died. The other one, not the birder. There was this really cool old trunk, and it's actually right next to me, and you're going to see all sorts of other terrible cords and stuff, but I'll still show you. Can you see that there's like a trunk there?
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
Okay, so that I found in my grandpa's basement when we were like cleaning out his stuff after he died, and I said, I want that just because it looks cool. And then I got it home, and I couldn't open it. It was locked. And I kind of went, oh, well, and I just sort of left it in a corner of the basement for about 12 years. Until one day, I don't even know why, I got it in my head to try to open the trunk. And it was a whole thing, and it took forever, and we ended up having to exactly what happens so Callie finds an old trunk in the book. And what they do, they bash at the lock, and they end up undoing the hinges at the back to get it open, is what I did. And so it was this whole thing, and I was sharing it on Twitter as I was doing it. I was asking if people knew how to open this lock and stuff. And somebody responded and said, that seems like something that should end up in a middle grade book. And I was in the middle of working on Across the Pond, and I realized, oh my gosh, they're at this old castle. She could totally find a cool old trunk and bust it open. But then there had to be something cool inside the trunk. And so it was just like this thing that happened in my actual life that sort of fed in and felt like it fit in the book that I was working on. So that was sort of the why. It was just a wonderful sort of serendipity, not so much a planning. But I love what you say about, because the past definitely connects to Callie, and then you said Callie, the birds sort of point to her future, and I love that makes me think of the cover, because she's sort of watching this bird who's flying out ahead of her, which I can totally see, and I love that. And you can see how birding has given her tools to connect with other people and build her own confidence, and I wouldn't say that I sat down to consciously do that, but I feel like that is what has happened in the book, is that the birds sort of, you see how she's got the tools to move forward beyond what happens in the book.
Yeah. Which is so nice, which is why it's all smiles and the possibility. It makes you hope. It's just so lovely. I love that kind of stuff. It's so wonderful. Oh my goodness. So then, you've also written, I wanted to talk about the fact that you've written, like you said, you've written several other books in all the age groups of the kids. So how did writing Across the Pond compare to your other books? Was it more difficult, easier, the same? Did it did it compare at all? I don't know.
Yeah. So, I'll compare novels, because I also write picture books. Their process is very, very different. But comparing middle grade and YA, the actual process of coming up with an idea and brainstorming it and developing the characters and doing the research I need to do, and then the actual discipline of writing out the draft, all of that is the same. Whether I'm writing middle grade or YA or plays, which I also write. It's just sort of all creative process. So again, it really comes down to that emotional truth of the character, right? So Across the Pond was one of my more straightforward processes. I think partly because I identified with Callie so much. My first middle grade field guide is a dual point of view. So I had a boy and a girl, and I had the structural difficulties of when you're going back and forth like that in the same story. So that one was a little bit more challenging, I think. Across the Pond, everything just, writing a novel always has its ups and downs, right? But it was one of the smoothest processes. I knew who she was. And so it was pretty easy for myself to figure out the arc of her story. And then I got to go to Scotland and really figure out the world there. It was kind of a great process. I've had rockier ones both before and after it. But Across the Pond was honestly really pretty much a delight all the way through, including getting this incredible cover. My cover artist's name is Romina Galata. She's amazing. And I actually have a picture book coming next year called Harriet's Ruffled Feathers that Romina is illustrating, which is about the woman who founded the Audubon Society. So that one's also about birds. Yeah, but she did this incredible cover, which I love. And when my mom saw it, she thought that they had actually used pictures of me as a child. which they didn't, but so I just absolutely totally in love with the cover.
Oh my gosh, I know. When I saw it too, I actually thought she looked a little like me too. When I was
the dark hair, and I actually have a red coat just like that.
I know, but it's just, I know. But so, like, did it feel more personal? Did this one feel more personal than your other ones? Because you said just because you connected with Callie so much, or was that more just, you've written books before, so now you're like, okay, I really get with the characters.
Just every time it's different. And my YAs are personal in different ways. But yeah, Callie was just somebody who just really clicked. And you mentioned the sort of hope and possibility a couple times, and that's one of my favorite things about writing middle grade is I strongly feel that all middle grade needs to end with hope. That's one of my favorite things about writing middle grade. And so I think with Callie, like I remember so distinctly how painful that friendship stuff is, but also I knew it was middle grade, and so that meant I knew it was going to be okay. I knew she was going to get through that really tough friendship stuff and be able to move beyond that and be stronger and better for it. So I think that was really, there's something that's almost healing about it as a writer to write through those things that you've been through, but make them turn out okay, whether it's making them turn out the way you wish they'd turned out, or, pulling out the people who helped you through it and giving them a place or whatever. I think maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, and I do like that because I think in a way, in reading it also will help anyone who reads it really to work through their stuff, even if in the real world they haven't actually worked through the actual thing happening, but they will have I feel like it almost like it gives them the tools to deal with it emotionally without realizing that it's giving them the tools to deal with it. Like I always say fiction is the best place to help kids with tough issues because they don't necessarily, not to say they don't understand, but because they do, but they might not totally connect that, like, as they're reading it, they're working through stuff on their own, or as they're reading, now they can explain it to the adults in their lives and be like, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now. I didn't really have the words, but look, someone's written them for me.
Yeah. And also there's just that feeling of seeing on the page that somebody else feels this and gets it, and you're not alone. I had that experience myself with Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson, which is a book about mental health. And I truly, educated person, thought that I was the only one who experienced this sort of crippling anxiety that I was experiencing until I read that book. And she talked about how she felt so honestly, and then she talked about therapy and medication and stuff. And that was why I went to a psychiatrist and got medication that has helped me so much, because I saw in a book, oh, I'm not alone. This is the thing other people feel. And I think that's really, really useful for kids too.
I could have really used one of those books when I was a kid, because I didn't get diagnosed with depression and anxiety until I was in my 20s, because when I was growing up, they weren't there. They weren't there. They just, and I was just I grew up I was even reading kids' books in the pre-Harry Potter where, they didn't have YA. YA wasn't a thing. It was just kids, adult. Oh my gosh. But yes, that would have been very helpful. And also, I will say, our store manager, Sarah, loves Jenny Lawson as well. Loves her book. So I think now I'm going to tell her that you were all into Furiously Happy and be like, yeah, you're going to be her new favorite middle grade author now.
Well, let me make another recommendation actually on that note of representation of depression in middle grade. There's a book called How to Become a Planet by Nicole Melby. I believe it comes out next week. If it's not already, it's May. And it is middle grade, and it deals with, there's middle grades where a parent or a sibling has depression, but in this one, the protagonist has depression, and it is depicted absolutely incredibly. And I think both for readers who need to see themselves represented, and for parents who need to understand a tween with depression. It's an incredible book. So just want to recommend that.
I actually think it did come out because I think I saw it come into the store. So it is in the store in the center now. Well, I'm also the children's buyer, so I see that and I'm like, yes, we're getting these, we're getting that. Another good one is actually dealing with a protagonist. They have really crippling social anxiety. It's called 5 Things About Ava Andrews.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's really good. It's by Margaret Dillaway. It's about this girl, Ava, who she is extremely introverted. She has social anxiety. She goes to the therapist, but like she has a very hard time in school. She can't really like get herself to talk to the other kids because in her brain, she's like figuring out all the ways that it's going to go. And this has given her, people just assume either that she's too snobby and just is like, thinks she's too good for everyone, or she just like, basically they just ignore her because she doesn't know how to like talk to them about this. But then what ends up happening is she joins an improv group of all things. And improv, she's able to like kind of, if for some way that is able to loosen her up a little bit. So when she's doing that, then she can like, it's a way for her to deal with her anxiety. And it's just a really fun, really nice book. And it's so nice. So yeah.
That sounds lovely. Yeah. I think there's more and more great mental health things for middle grade readers.
There really are. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right. But and I do like, and even though Callie like doesn't necessarily have like mental illness, but the fact that it's dealt with like this toxic friendship that breaks apart, and it's a big deal, and it's really like very almost traumatizing for her. And it's that way for a lot of middle school kids who like, they were my best friend and then they did this thing and now we're not friends and I don't know what to do. And that's a big deal. And it's really great that you know, that's in there. And I think that's wonderful about that. So, and I did ask that. All right. I'm going through all my questions here. All right. And I just would like to know, how would you, I mean, you kind of already classified this story that crossed the pond. But like, it's like a family story. Is it coming of age? Is it like, just like all of the above? Just like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is technically a coming of age, but yeah, I mean, I just say it's a contemporary story, and then I say what it's about. You know, it's about this girl who moves to Scotland and gets into birding, and classifying it as sort of for librarians and
I know,
sort of tell the story.
I know, but yes, but that's really good point too. And then just, I do like how there is the history element of a little bit of like with the journal. So it's like, yeah, look, history too. There's something for everyone. And like, it's really, really cool. All right. So now here is a humdinger of a question that actually got asked in a previous event by one of the audience members, but it's so good. So I've stolen it and now I ask it to everybody. So who would you say is your closest authorial doppelganger?
Oh gosh.
I know.
Well, that is really hard because I write picture book through YA. But I will say, and partly because of that, okay, this is aspirational. I am not going to say that I am like this person, but I emulate her, and that's Alana K Arnold. And she writes picture book. She writes middle grades that are light and happy and fun like mine. And then she writes dark, messy YA like mine. She's absolutely incredible and is a huge role model for me. So I'm not going to say doppelganger like she's like me, but she's someone who I've sort of watched and modeled, you know, hoped to be like. So yeah, Alana K Arnold, if you haven't read her books, her middle grade Bat series, A Boy Called Bat, is so much fun. Which actually, speaking of representation, Bat is autistic. He's really into animals. Yeah, he befriends this skunk. It's absolutely wonderful. And then her YAs are all incredible, but Damsel is one of my very favorites. So, yes, Alana K Arnold, but that is a great question.
Oh my gosh. But yes, I totally see that. You're right. It's very much like, basically, it's kind of like, because we have this thing in the bookstore where we call it Department 22. And it's basically an if you like this, try this.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you like this book, then you might like these books over here. And that's kind of what I'm asking you with, like, if you like this, try this. So,
yeah.
Like, kind of like that. And that is a really great one because, yeah, it's like, so cool. So cool. So awesome. All right. So we are running down to the end here of our event tonight, but I wanted to ask, so is there anything new you're working on that you'd like to share with us? I know you mentioned that there's a picture book coming out next year. Is there?
Yeah, I have 4 books coming out next year.
Hi.
But so there's a picture book. In the spring of next year, this picture book called Harriet's Ruffled Feathers is coming, and that one is about birding too. And then I also am doing a co-authored Little Women adaptation where we're 4 authors and we each wrote a sister. That's called Great or Nothing. And I wrote that with Tess Sharp, Carolyn Tung Richmond, and Jessica Spotswood. So that's coming out in spring. But my next middle grade will be out in the summer. And it's called Not Starring Zadie Louise. And it is about a girl whose mom runs a theater company. And she's forced to spend the summer there. But she very much does not want anything to do with the theater. So that's the next middle grade.
Oh, that's so much fun. Now we're into
a lot of fun.
Theater, because you are totally right. I get kids who come in and they ask for, like, this is just their thing. They really like it. Like, I had, like, this one boy come in and he wanted, like, he literally came up to me and he wanted science experiment books. Like, actual ones. Like, for, like, he wanted to learn about science and do experiments. And I'm like, okay. That's like awesome. That's fantastic. And it's just like, I love when the kids are the ones and they come up and they're asking for like the nonfiction learning books. And it's like, no, it's not their parents. Like the children are coming and they're asking me, oh, I want this. I really like the Titanic. What do you have about the Titanic? I'm like, okay.
And that's the thing with kids having these fascinations. They know what they're into.
Yeah.
And you have a cool job to get to then connect them with the book.
They definitely know. And then I have people that's like, oh, I'm learning about U.S. history. I really want to learn more about U.S. history. And I'm like, this is awesome. You're all wonderful. Like, oh my goodness. Because then it makes me think of me when I was a kid, because I would latch on to things like, you know, because you do, as you do. You're just like, must know this thing. This is my thing. And it's really cool. So yeah, I love that. Now we have birding, we have theater. Oh, it's just so great. All right. So we are running up to the end here. So I do have one final question for you, Joy. I always like to ask, because I'm a bookseller and I'm nosy. So what is one of the most recent books you've read and enjoyed?
I anticipated this question, and I brought to say A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontornvat. Yes, it won a Newbery Honor. It is, for people who don't know, you clearly do know, but it is a Les Miserables retelling. When I heard that, I was like, how do you retell Les Miserables for middle grade? Because like I said, I believe middle grade has to have hope, right?
Right.
Oh my gosh. The way she does it is absolutely extraordinary. My both my 11 and 15-year-old and my grown man husband all loved it. So it is absolutely incredible. I recommend it for just like all ages, all readers. It's so good.
I know. It's so awesome. Because I saw that too, because I'm a his fan.
Uh-huh.
But then I was like, oh, middle grade. Huh. How does that work? You could make the argument that it's somewhat hopeful at the end, but you know, I mean, I don't know, middle grade like, but yeah, it's so cool, and it's it actually, I think it this year it was one of the Newbery Honor books actually, which
it was. Well, Christina Soontornvat had 2 Newbery Honor books. Her nonfiction book, All 13, about the Thai boys soccer team rescue, is also absolutely incredible. So for people who like adventure rescue stories, that one, so good.
And just to let you know, everybody, we do have both of those books at the store to buy. So come
order them; they're so good.
They're so good. All right. So before we completely say bye to everybody, I have to do a little. I'm sort of already did a plug for the store, but now I'm going to do a plug for Joy's book, Across the Pond, which can currently be found on my staff pick shelf, and with my lovely blurb attached to it. And it is this book, guys, it's so wonderful and so lovely. And it just, like I said, it put a smile on my face, which is, I judge books by depending on how much they make me smile. That's one of the way I judge books. And this made me smile a lot. So please, it is on our shelves now on my staff pick shelf. You can order it on our website. You can come into the store. You can call us, all of the above. And also, you can also inquire about all of her other amazing books, which I believe most of them as well. I know we definitely have her other middle grade book, which is very funny. And then, so you can definitely, and if we don't have it, I'm sure we could get them in. That's not a problem. But I know we do have quite a few of them because, I'm a huge fan of yours now, Joy. That's just
so much
who I am now. So stop by and see us and, pick out Joy's books and any of the other wonderful books that she recommended, because we do have those too. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Joy, for being here with us tonight. It has been so much fun and just talking with you. And thank you so much for writing such an awesome book. Really.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just got to encourage you, put out a bird feeder, let the birds come to you.
Exactly. That is how you do the armchair birding, because they have wings. So there you go. And it's perfect. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. Bye.